I guess from a team point of view, you just knew what your role was. It was to take the new ball and get early wickets. I think more importantly for me, it was never about runs. It was just get us wickets. So, at times I was expensive, but my main goal was to just try and knock some over early and make some inroads for the spinners, because we had two brilliant spinners in McIntyre and May, and the sooner I could hand the ball over to them on Adelaide Oval, the better off we'd be.
Hello everyone, welcome to In the Corner, the place where every cricketer wants to be. I'm your host Callum Dunk, and thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Please ensure that you follow, like and subscribe to our social media platforms for more updates about the cricket that's going on around the world, as well as our latest episodes on YouTube, Facebook and Spotify. Today's guest is a legendary fast bowler in South Australian cricket, current coach of West Torrens District Cricket Club and the coach of the Darren Lehmann Cricket Academy, Hags Harrity. Hags, how are you, mate?
Good, mate. Nice to see you again.
Yes, it's been a while. We've known each other since I was 16. I remember going to the Gillespie Academy in the winter, just trying to get myself ready for the summer, me just thinking that I can bowl quicker than what I actually did, and you just trying to give me some good advice.
Was I successful?
No, no, unfortunately not. But we're going to be talking about a few of the cricketers that you've coached on the episode today and their rapid rise to form. But Hags, it's time for our opening segment, which is called Legends and Sledges. Is there ever been a time where you've given an opponent a ripping sledge, or someone's come back at you, or have you heard someone from your team just deliver the killer blow?
I'm not really the best sledger. Mine are pretty basic, and they've often been something like, I'm going to knock your head off, or I'm going to kill you, all those sort of things. So not too much thought goes into my sledging, but I did have an incident one day, and it probably taught me a lesson. It was a young lad, Michael Dighton at the time, playing, debuting for WA, and he was opening the batting with Mike Hussey, and first ball, I welcomed him to first-class cricket with a bouncer, obviously, and put him on his butt. I walked down the wicket and said, I hope Mum and Dad didn't fly over here to watch me kill you, which didn't go down too well, and I didn't realise till after the game when I had a beer with Huss, and Huss said to me, that's pretty low, Hags. And I said, what do you mean? He said, his dad had just passed away last week. So that didn't go down too well. So I've always been wary of what comes out of my mouth, because you can't take them back. Of course, I didn't realise what had happened. But the best sledge I've ever had, to me, I think, I was playing Pakistan, and Siklain Mustaq was bowling, and I didn't know what was coming out of his hand. So, he was beating the bat, turning it both ways. And Mohan Khan was the keeper at the time, and one particular ball where I've just missed it by about a foot, I heard him say, hurry, no picky sacky. So that's always rung in my head. So from that moment onwards, I just tried to slog, and I actually played my first sweep shot I ever did in my career, and only one I've ever played, and I nailed it, and then ran down the wicket and just got out embarrassed. That was a bit embarrassing for me. But probably the best sledge, and it wasn't so much that it was an aggressive sledge, but one of the funnier things I've seen on the cricket field was Peter McIntyre. We were playing Victoria against Ian Harvey, who, the freak as he was known, a fantastic cricketer that played for Australia and Victoria. And Harves has walked out to bat. Macca's in the middle of an over. He's just taken a wicket previously. And I'm sure you may remember Peter McIntyre, the leg spinner for us, but he did resemble Dr. Evil from the Austin Power movies, and as he walked into bowl, he sort of paused at the crease and did the finger and said, Dr. Evil. And there wasn't a dry eye in the stadium, or on the oval anyway, and poor Ian Harvey couldn't face up. He kept walking to square leg and tried to compose himself, and he just couldn't, and I think he only lasted a couple of balls. It did him in, so that was probably one of the funnier sledges I've ever seen.
No, that's actually quite funny. It just takes me back to my childhood watching Austin Powers. But Hags, I just wanted to ask you about your career and what originally inspired you to pursue the game of cricket.
Yeah, so growing up from a very young age, I loved football, Port Adelaide fan, and grew up in the Port, and my brothers played football, and I played junior football at Port Districts and Port Adelaide all the way up to, I think I might have made the 19 squad one year and given it away for cricket. But played a season, well, not even a season, a game, I think, with Gavin Wanganeen. He went past us quite quickly. But so football was all I ever loved and still do now. But by chance, I was playing in the driveway one day with some mates and just bowling with a tennis ball. And my brother was good friends with former opening bowler of Port Adelaide called Paul Ridgway. And at the time, Port Adelaide had recruited Phil de Freitas, the English Test cricketer, and he was opening the bowling at the time too. And they'd both come over our house to visit my brother, and I straight away recognised who Phil was, being a lover of watching the cricket on TV and stuff. And he came over and gave me some tips and watched me bowl and said, "Mate, you should be coming out and playing grade cricket. You should be playing club cricket." So from there, I sort of had a crack. And yeah, so I guess from my point of view too, is watching two older brothers not quite make it, even though they were very talented footballers, and everyone else playing football that I knew, I was sort of to do something different to, have a crack at cricket just seemed to appeal to me.
Absolutely. Hags, you've been able to play with some pretty extraordinary cricketers for South Australia. Tell us about your fondest memories of being in the change rooms at Adelaide Oval.
Very lucky. Back in the day, the old change rooms before the everything was changed at Adelaide Oval, we had the seating was sort of split, so there was almost in thirds in the change room. So I sat in a row of four people, and so there was Darren Lehmann, then Jamie Siddons, myself, and then Greg Blewett. So I had a pretty tough crew to keep up with sitting around me. I had some legends already. Ready-made legends, and only to go on and do better things. And as we all know, Jamie Siddons is probably one of the unluckiest players never to play for Australia. That was just a buzz and an honour every day I came into the change rooms and sat, next to these guys. So, and more often than not, listened into what their stories were and what they were talking about. I was very raw when I first started, only 18, so for me, it was really shut up and learn and listen. And I guess the fun stuff for us that a lot of people don't see or may have heard of is, before every game, before we went out to bowl or bat, they'd put Nugget Reeves, our mascot, up on the table, and the same thing every time. He'd get up and he'd say pretty much the same inspirational chat about keeping things tight so the opposition can't hear you clap, and he'd come out with all these catchphrases, and then go out and get him. And as we're about to leave, we'd all pull the chairs away from the table and leave him stranded up on the table as we walked out to play. So that just happened every time, and God love Nugget, he's still going now and still, getting to the games and supporting the team. So he was just a calmness in the change rooms having someone like Nugget around.
Absolutely. And a lot of people would envy you, Hags, and being in the position with Bluey and Buff, but is there a particular piece of advice that you were given from any of those idols in South Australian cricket?
I don't know if I'd say there's any particular advice. To me, as I said, very early, it didn't take long to realise that Jamie Siddons was the boss, and hence his nickname from most of the players was boss. And I really, as I said, I would shut up and listen, and all I wanted to do is impress him and make sure I knew pretty quickly whether I was performing or not performing to the standard he wanted. I'd only have to look at him at second slip, and he was either clapping and praising me and often saying the word premium, or he was pulling his cap down over his face, and I knew I wasn't reaching expectations. So yeah, the advice wasn't, I was lucky enough to get lots of advice from lots of different people and other teams as well throughout my career. But I guess from a team point of view, you just knew what your role was. It was to take the new ball and get early wickets. I think more importantly for me, it was never about runs. It was just get us wickets. So, at times I was expensive, but my main goal was to just try and knock some over early and make some inroads for the spinners, because we had two brilliant spinners in McIntyre and May, and the sooner I could hand the ball over to them on Adelaide Oval, the better off would be.
Looking for the ultimate teamwear solutions for your sports club? Look no further than Macron Adelaide. Their extensive range includes a wide variety of jerseys for various sports, including soccer, AFL, volleyball, baseball, basketball, hockey, athletics, netball, rugby, and cricket, of course. Whether you opt for a custom design or choose something from their catalogue, you can trust the quality in their products. At Macron Adelaide, they pride themselves on providing top-notch teamwear solutions for clubs of all kinds. Visit them today and find out why they're the go-to brand for sports teams around the country and around the world. Macron Adelaide, for clubs that mean business. You've been able to bowl exceptionally fast throughout your career, and I remember listening to Brett Lee. Some people are just born being able to bowl fast. Did your pace just come naturally, or did you really have to work hard in your training to build up that pace?
I realised at a pretty young age that I was quick playing school cricket. So I dabbled in school cricket in primary school, and I just knew that I was running in and hitting kids and didn't know where they were going and all that sort of thing. So I pretty quickly realised that I was quicker than most. I had a unique action, as in a slinging action at the time, and which I don't know where that came from. It was probably more to do with my coordination than it was a gift. But, we all saw Tomo do it on TV, and that was probably some of my earliest memories watching, when Tomo and Lily were playing for Australia. So whether I accidentally copied it or I don't know. But, yeah, I picked up pretty early that I was quick, and I no doubt fast twitch fibres. I hate long distance anything. I hate riding a bike long distance. I hate running long distance, but I always love sprinting and doing things quickly. It probably suited me, and I, not realising at the time that being lean and skinny is probably a good trait for a fast bowler. I was lucky in that way. Sometimes, if you're too big, it doesn't come out as quick as it probably looks like it might. So I had probably more of a fast bowler's build than a footballer's.
We've seen fast bowling these days, and just bowling in general, being so much more tactical than it used to be with the introduction of white ball cricket, and in particular T20 cricket. You see captains setting fields for individual balls, and then the next ball, the bowler's going to bowl something different, so therefore it has to change. How do you see the tactical side of being a fast bowler?
Yeah, look, it's changed over the years, hasn't it? I can remember back into catching a plane over to, it might have been Tassie, and we were looking at the opposition batters in Cox and Hills at the time, and my coach at the time, Jeff Hammond, pulling out all this paper of photocopies, and we were looking how they'd been getting out recently, and was there a trend? Oh yeah, Coxie was getting LBW a lot. All right, see if we can swing it in and hit him in the pads. I mean, that sounds very old school, and that's how it started, and then it progressed. I mean, a team meeting before a game would go through the opposition, and often, it'd be top of off, all that sort of thing. But yeah, as you said, the game has changed so much, especially in 2020. It's not a bad over that can lose you the game. It's a bad couple of balls that can lose you the game. And I dabbled for a while when I was the bowling coach at South Australia, and 2020 had just started, and they were starting to produce programs where you could look at opposition's wagon wheels. So for me, from a bowling coach back then, I would look at what areas they were targeting and where they're in their boundaries, because minimising fours and sixes is massive, and that was pretty much how I did it back then. I'm not sure what programs they use currently, but it's a little bit different at clubland, because you might not even know who the opposition you're playing is. But from a state level, I guess, as a bowler, when I was playing, the first few times you played someone, you had no idea. But I can tell you pretty quickly, I worked out, don't bowl short at Ricky Ponting, because especially on the shorter boundaries on Adelaide Oval, they got dispatched pretty quickly. I worked out, don't give any width to Jamie Cox, because he'll cut it off the fourth stump. You know what I mean? There was things like that you knew, you worked out. And then there was the guys you worked out, oh, hang on, I reckon I'm a sniff here. If they don't like the short ball, he might back away a little bit, or whatever it may be. High back lift, I'll bowl fuller, all those sort of things. So, yeah, it has evolved over the years, no doubt. Yeah.
Hags, I really just wanted to touch on, you mentioned Ricky Ponting. You don't bowl short to Ricky Ponting. What's it like to share a change room with Ricky Ponting? Because you went away with Australia A in the 90s, yep. Quite young as well. You went away on that tour when you were in the academy. Tell us all about what it's like sharing a change room with the blokes who played in the golden era of cricket for Australia.
Yeah, it was an amazing team, and Ponting talks about it in his book. It was such a great team, and so many players went on to do great things. It was Hayden Langer, Ponting, Gilchrist, Angel. It was an amazing team, and yeah, at the time, because we were young and we were called the. In fact, Stewie Law was probably one of the older fellas, and he was captain of Queensland at the time. But it was just such an amazing team and talented team. It wasn't really hard to see where they were probably all heading. You worked out pretty quickly that there were some special things there and ready to go, and that Australian cricket was going to be in a good place. And obviously those guys I just mentioned are all involved in record-winning stretches in Test cricket, so no surprise. But I was probably more in awe of the older guys like Stewie Law in that team at the time, because I respected him and he had been captain of Queensland. So, I did take advice from him quite a few times about how, should I go play county cricket? Should you wait? Where am I at? And, he gave me good advice actually. But I guess the other guys I spoke about, they were all trying to make their way and trying to debut, which they did pretty quickly after that tour. So, it's great to have those memories because you sort of know them when they were only young and raw too.
I can guarantee you that every cricketer would have loved to have had that experience, Hags, and shared the change room with those blokes. And I just wanted to touch on your coaching now. You're head coach at the Darren Lehmann Cricket Academy. Obviously, you've had a long-standing relationship with Buff, but you've also been a very successful grade cricket coach at West Torrens District Cricket Club. Tell us about how you got into coaching. I know you got into it with your playing days when you had a lot of stress fractures in your back, as we've talked about off air previously. How'd you get into coaching, and what are your fondest memories of coaching?
Coaching, interestingly, I started quite young because I think it was the first contract I ever signed at the SACA. My manager at the time, trying to probably get me more money, was to throw in a coaching clause that I'd on the side, because back then cricketers weren't professional. Some guys had day jobs at the time. So he got me a bit of a coaching gig where I was doing some stuff. So I think I started with the under 15s at the Redbacks. So, and it didn't take me long to realise that it was, something I really enjoyed. And for me, it was passing down things that I was learning for the first time. So I was sort of learning on my feet a little bit. As I said, I was very, I was one of these inexperienced cricketers playing state cricket. I hadn't had it wasn't my destiny or my journey like many of the cricketers that played state cricket. I didn't grow up with a cricket bat in my hand. So, but while I was learning, I was sort of trying to go back into the juniors and tell them what I was learning. And that just worked for me, and it still does today. It's what drives me. I love helping people, and and yes, that does stem a little bit from what happened in my own career. Maybe it's a little bit of therapy for me for the disappointment I had in my own career at times, especially with the stress fractures and stuff. So for me, just trying to make sure I can help kids get on the park, and I've had some good success recently. It makes it all worth it. And they say when you enjoy what you do for a living, it's not really working. And my wife reminds me that I'm not really working because I get to coach cricket for a living, and I love it. Yeah.
Yes, and we're going to talk about two of your recent success stories. The first one that we're going to talk about is Daniel Drew, West Torrens player for a fair while, and now he's been scoring Shield hundreds for fun. And I remember watching him bring up his maiden Test 100 at Adelaide Oval. I went to the Shield, and I see Ferg in the crowd clapping him. It was a scratchy 100. He had to dig in really hard, but it was against a quality Tasmanian attack with Bird, Siddle. I think Riley Meredith was playing as well. So 3 blokes who can genuinely bowl. How do you see Drewy's rise?
This will be my 8th season at West Torrens. My first season there, he made his first A-grade 100, and I could see pretty early that the kid had some talent. But like many batsmen in grade cricket, it's just getting that first one out the way, and then from there you learn how to do it. And he went on that year and won the Bradman Medal, and had a fantastic year. And that was probably more so from an all-round ability. Taking wickets and runs helps you, makes it easier to win those sort of awards. But only last season he just got pipped in the Bradman Medal, and he only played half a season of grade cricket, and he didn't even bowl himself. So that was purely off his batting talent. That's how much his batting's come on. I still think he's a handy bowler, but his batting's gone to another level. And for anyone who watches Drewy carefully, you can see it square of the wicket. He gets up on his toes like no other batter I've seen. I just love watching him play. And he played state junior tennis, and you can see it in his shots. And in fact, the other night he came over my house to watch the football, and we played a little bit of table tennis out the back. And even playing table tennis, there's two hands on the bat playing backhand, and it reminds me of him playing one of his famous cut shots. And yeah, look, I think he's only going to get better. He gets stronger and better. And now that the confidence is there that he belongs, now that he's made a couple of hundreds and a very big double ton. He's very unlucky not to go away with the Australia A team. He was the second leading run scorer in Shield cricket last year, and he didn't play the first 4 Shield games. So, there's bigger and better things to come from Drury, I'm pretty sure.
Absolutely. And the next one that I do want to touch on is Spencer Johnson. And it's very fitting that we have the interview today because Spencer Johnson has just been picked for Australia to tour South Africa for 3 T20s, which is pretty amazing. 20 wickets in his first 4 Shield games. Obviously a breakout season in the BBL with the Brisbane Heat. Wish it was for the Adelaide Strikers personally, but how do you see his success?
I will admit when I first met him and took over at the club, he had a little bit of a reputation for being a bit lazy. But I mean, he was a typical young teenage kid and probably finding his feet and learning what it takes to bowl fast. And he was very lucky that he came through in a time that Trent Kelly was involved in our club, and because Trent was just hard on him, very hard on him, and probably harder than I am capable of being on players. And we've both got different ways we go about it. But Trent put the hard word on him and made him work really hard. And I'll give Trent a lot of credit for where he is today. Over the years, to be fair, the young lads had some niggles. One was quite serious, and I won't lie and say that I thought he was pretty harshly diagnosed, as in they weren't sure if he was being soft or not. He got a second opinion one and found out that he had a broken foot and that he needed surgery. And so that probably delayed what's happening now. This could have all happened probably 2 or 3 years ago if he hadn't missed a bit of cricket. But in saying that, he fought really hard, worked really hard to get himself back to where, to get himself back where he is right now. But for some reason, it seemed to just take so long for them to play him and trust in him. And maybe I'm biased, I'm his coach, but I obviously could see his ability, his left arm, he's tall, he's quick, he's an athlete in the field. He takes all the catches that come his way. And I just thought he was ready to go probably 2 years ago. And unfortunately, if they gave him a chance back then when we still had some of the guys that have since retired, like Ferguson and Worrell and many, probably might have won something. But, and Chad was even still around maybe then too. But anyway, it is what it is now, and they've got a good little lineup together now. And, I guess the only thing we've got to worry about now is will South Australia even see Spencer Johnson? He didn't make the second 11 team, the first second 11 team last year. He didn't actually make that team, and now he's almost skipped state cricket. He's 4 Shield games in. He's potentially could do something like Glenn McGrath did and completely jump state cricket and move on.
Yeah, it will be very interesting to see how Spence goes in South Africa, and hopefully a baggy green might be in store for him.
Yeah, I'd love it.
Hags, before I let you go, you are very heavily invested in South Australian cricket, as we talked about, head coach of West Torrens. How do you see some of the changes that Saka is making to the grade cricket competition, and how do you see the whole redback system at the moment?
Probably, I won't lie, I've been frustrated over the years I feel like as a player I was saying 13 teams is too many or an odd number's too many anyway. You can argue whether we should be 14 or 12 or 10, whatever, but 13 just doesn't make sense to me. And I know we'll say that they've tried to make mergers happen, but it's the way they've gone about them. They've got it wrong. I think bullying teams into merging is not the way, and that's backfired on them. At least I will give them credit, though, that they've tried to do something this year. You can't hold it against them for trying something, and they've tried 2 divisions. Will that work? We'll soon find out. My concern is that the whole reason for having divisions was to put the best of the best playing in Division 1. But an example of where that might go wrong now is my current team has produced 5 first-class cricketers, and in fact, they all 5 were picked in the last 12 last season's last game. And so if you take 5 out of my team right now, we're probably not a Division 1 team. So that's where that probably theory breaks down and what happens then. So, yeah, that's my main concern, and that's people will say, well, that's bad luck. West Torrens, who cares? But all I've ever wanted is what's best for South Australian cricket. And right now we're seeing teams are recruiting players, good cricketers. So nothing to take away from some of the cricketers that are getting recruited, but they're recruiting cricketers that they know won't play first-class cricket anymore and make sure they stay in Division 1. And we're starting to see that trend happen. And is that what's best for South Australian cricket moving forward? I don't think so.
Well, it sounds like the Saka has a fair bit to contemplate in this year and next year as well. But it's great to get your perspective on it as a coach, and hopefully it will mean a bit extra silverware for West Torrens because you've completed the three-peat twice, haven't you? With the T20, the 2-day comp, and the 50-over comp.
No, we won the triple, which still not being confirmed, but I believe we might be the only team in Australia to do it. But I know we are the only team in South Australia to do it. But a couple of seasons ago we won the double. We didn't get the three-peat, so we've got the double and the double and the triple. So it'd be nice to get a single somewhere.
Well, Hags, thank you so much for giving up your time and coming into the studio. It's great that we're able to reconnect, considering when I first met you, I was a 16-year-old. So it's funny that we're still able to keep in contact these days.
Nice to talk to you, mate.
Well, thank you so much to those of you who are watching or listening at home. Please ensure that you follow In the Cordon on all of your major social media pages. Thanks for watching In the Cordon, the place where every cricketer wants to be. Cheers.